All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our next Before You Shine, CzechCrunch Shine and Femme event. My name is Clara Horton. I am the founder of CzechCrunch Shine, and today we're organizing this amazing event with the support of Google and Keboola. So now I would love to invite all of our speakers to the stage today. We have a really fabulous panel happening. So I'm very excited to host everyone here. During this event, please feel free to share your questions in the questions tab. If you have any comments or any additional thoughts you'd like to share with everyone, please use the chat for that. You can also share your LinkedIn profile in case you'd like to network with the other attendees here. And now let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy you have joined us today. We'll start with a round of introductions, and I would actually love to start with our co-host, Femme and Lucie from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lucie. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Femme, where we help women with their professional development. We do this through mentorship, where we connect women that have any career challenge with their mentors who are helping them throughout this journey. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here and to be able to put this event together with Clara.
Amazing. How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
Awesome.
It's a nice day today.
Awesome. Great to have you. All right. How about Katka? Why don't you go next?
Yeah, thank you. And hi, everyone. I'm also very pleased to be here. I'm Katka, and I'm in the role of VP of People in Slido. So everything related to people in our company, I'm in charge. And Slido is a company. We are actually an easy-to-use Q&A and polling platform. We help people to get the most out of their meetings and events by bridging the gap between the speakers and the audience. And so that's what we do. And I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
So happy to have you. All right, on to our next speaker. Matej, why don't you go next?
Sure. Thank you very much, Clara. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matej Ftacnik. I'm the co-founder and CXO, which means the Chief Experience Officer of Vacuumlabs. We as a company are roughly 250 people around the world, all the way from Hong Kong to San Francisco. And we focus on building new generation banking and fintech solutions with our partners around the world. And I'm excited to be here today to talk about the challenges of working with a global mindset in our region. Yeah.
So happy to have you. How has your week been so far?
A lot of work, but all good stuff. So kind of excited and positively with a positive mood. Yeah.
Amazing. All right, and on to our last but not least speaker, Vráťa.
Hi guys, my name is Vráťa. I have the blessing in my life that I am leading around 120 people from Applifting and associated companies. I am the frontman of Applifting, so I represent the guys to our clients and to the outside world. And we do digital product creation and technological transformations and technological innovations for big companies and enterprises.
Amazing. How are you doing today?
Yeah, awesome. I'm very much looking forward to this panel. So pretty excited right now.
Exciting. All right, so let's kick things off with a very interesting question, in my opinion. Today we'll be talking about creating inclusive startup culture. So I would love to actually hear from each of you. What does the phrase company culture actually mean to you? And how about we start with Vráťa? So I'll go from the other end this time.
Yeah, sure. For me personally, the company culture is when there are no managers around and no bosses around, how the people behave and what they are expressing, and are they having fun or are they depressed? How are they like if they are led without any supervision? That's what company culture for me means.
Amazing. Would you say that that's the company culture of Uplifting?
Well, in Applifting, we don't have any managers, so I'm not saying that people are, I hope that people are happy here. You would have to ask them, right? But for me, the company culture in Applifting, it's mostly about coming to the company, to the office whole, the whole person, whole mind, whole soul, not leaving anything behind, not hiding behind mask, being able to provide honest feedback, this kind of values.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Matej, what about you? What does company culture mean to you?
It means a lot of many different things, right? It's not a single thing that we can point to. A company culture for a growing company means initially it's a set of values that the founders believe that are the right ones. Not only that they want to instill that into a team, but the ones that they live and breathe, right? And as a company grows, a lot of the people that you hire need to adhere to those values and to the culture that you're building, and the culture is continually changing and moving. And at a certain size of a company, at a certain stage, the culture is the only way you manage, right? It's the only way you actually can influence anything in the business. And if you've set your company culture properly, it's going to help you a lot to grow and to achieve your goals. However, if you have not set your company culture properly, or if you're sending mixed messages, or if the co-founders are sending mixed messages, it can be a big problem for the overall performance of the business.
Absolutely. Thank you for that great answer. Katka, what about you? How would you define company culture in your own words?
Yeah, for me, it would be probably that no matter whether there are managers or leaders around, like for me, it's very simple. It's how we work together and how we treat each other in the company, but not only ourselves as a people in the company, but also how we work together and treat our customers, and also the outside world and how we react on what's happening outside. And when you add there, because the topic today is inclusive startup culture, that's not automatic, right? Not every company has inclusive culture, and that inclusive for me means that I can be myself. I can come to the work. With being myself fully, I don't need to hold anything back, and I'm being treated respectfully, and I'm just being taken for who I am.
Amazing. I love what you mentioned about being able to bring your whole self to work. I think that's a very unique thing that's not been available for ages. So I'm really happy we'll discuss this today. Great. And Lucie, what does company culture mean to you?
I will probably repeat what most of you said here, but I would like to quote Ben Horowitz, who actually in his book about building culture said that culture is how people behave when no one is looking. And I think that's something what you basically almost all of you said. So it's not only the fun stuff like the kombucha and beer on tap, and the bean bags, but it's more about how people treat each other. And it's a lot about the humanness, how people interact.
Absolutely. All right, off to our next question. Lucie, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we actually put this event together was because we know that probably right now there are some founders who are listening to us who might be first-time founders. They might be going through this entrepreneurial journey for the first time. They might be focusing on building the product, the sales, but they might not be prioritizing the creating company culture first. So I would like to ask everyone, when did you start thinking about defining your culture, and what was the first step towards to it? And we can start maybe from the top, Katka.
Yeah, so I got lucky because I came to the already done deal, right? But in Slido, I would say that we got extremely lucky because defining the culture and our values, it was one of the very first steps our CEO and co-founders did. And our CEO says that back in 2013, when Slido was established, like they all sat together in one room. It didn't have even any windows, but they did have the values on the wall. And they knew that if they stay on the wall, it would be just empty words. So they really took the effort to take them in daily life when developing the product, when communicating with clients. or tackling simple daily challenges or hiring, right? And our company values, they are really very simple and they stayed simple. It's just we care. Second one is don't stop. And third one is simply clever. And they are with us from the beginning. And on that basis, they really can scale. And that's important thing. Because I was in my past in the situation of formulating company culture and goal and values when the company already existed for several years, when it went through some evolution, and it's very challenging and demanding task, and it was almost impossible to accomplish, either with external consultants, or then we decided we will do it internally. But it was so painful process, because it's when you have, for example, already like hundreds or even 150 people in your company, every person has a slightly different way how they understand them. So somehow you can phrase them, then you find yourself that you phrase them, but it has like 20 pages. You have no way how to simplify it, because when you start to simplify, it starts to lose meaning for many people. So it's just so difficult task that I think that really tackling them straight at the beginning can save you a lot of time, effort, and money actually later.
That makes sense. Matej, what was your approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, right? It was more organic. Like, it wasn't like sitting down in a room and making sure that step number 3 of building a company is making sure we have written a good company culture. I'm gonna say that, you know, it needs to come from the founders. If you're good people and nice people and not jerks, you know, it just comes by itself. And then, you know, bring in people that you like, try to work with them for quite some time. And if you're in a reasonable state, that you're not firefighting for every single dollar that you need to actually sustain yourself, then, you know, take a breather, take a weekend off, and go somewhere close, you know, into a chalet, and really think in a different setting of what exactly is it that we stand for. And I believe, I'm a big believer that, you know, if you're doing things right and you do it with your heart, you can then, you know, write down those things. And I agree with Katka that you can't be 150 people to do that. You need to be a smaller group, right? It's the co-founders and the closest, you know, couple of employees that does that. But that is essentially the way we did it. That, you know, for the first 2 years, we just did what we did, our gig, and we tried to be, you know, good people, and that reflected into the service that we provided globally. And then we just written them down. And ever since that, once the hiring kicked off, we adhere.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Vráťa?
Well, for us, the culture was, you know, it was a living thing. We lived our culture from the start, and around 30 people when we started to become something else than just a family business. We kind of had to deal with it, and we had to decide whether we will be manager-based culture or like value-based culture. So we actually written our values into something that we call Codex of Uplifting, and it's available at GitHub as an open source. And that's you know, our basic founding document, something like a constitution for us. And it has four simple values. It's trust, sincerity, freedom, and craftsmanship. And through those 4 values, we drive the whole business.
So how does this no manager thing works in practice? Is everyone reporting to you, or what's like the structure?
Well, the structure right now is pretty flat. We have self-organizing teams with a role of a team leader, which is more of a servant leader than a manager. He cannot order stuff, but he can still coordinate and provide this kind of a coordination service both to our customers and to the team inside. And then we have something called Council of Elders, which is something like our board, and our board is basically elected by our colleagues. So our colleagues basically say, you know, who wants to be, you know, who they want them to be represented, and they vote 6 members of the council. And so, to be honest, I found it uplifting, but I only have 1/6 of decision power in uplifting right now.
Where did you get inspired for this approach? Since it's a bit unusual.
Yeah, I don't know if you know the book Reinventing Organizations, which describes the kind of teal paradigm of building building companies that are based on self-organizing and wholeness principle and kind of finding your own goal, which is always changing. So we kind of grew without even knowing that book, and kind of like an emerging property of the universe. I know more companies that kind of like just did it. And then we received this book from a friend of mine, and he was like, hey, they've written a book about you, and we're like, nah, that's not possible. And basically then when we looked into the book, it described kind of a company that we were building. And then it happened 3 years ago. We were 60% way to the teal company, and the last 3 years we are kind of striving for finishing the last 40%, but it's a never-ending struggle, I would say.
Thanks for sharing.
Amazing. Hearing everyone talk about the first steps they took in creating their culture. I'm really excited to also hear you during our networking panels, which I quickly wanted to remind everyone of. After our discussion, we have an online networking venue where we'll have each of our speakers by one of the tables, where you can join them and ask them additional questions you might have about how they built their culture and how they made sure it's inclusive. All right. Now that we are sort of on the beginning and talking about building an inclusive company culture that really allows employees to feel safe and to feel appreciated, I am wondering what was the what were some of the biases you had to personally overcome, and what were some of the biases in the company that you maybe found that were sort of popping up throughout the way from from the small words like saying, hey guys, even though you have women in your team, this might not hit on the first note, but then after a few times this might sort of ring a few bells. So what were some of the challenges that you simply had to overcome? Katka, why don't you go first?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think that the example which you just mentioned, this is something what comes kind of automatically while you start to be more diverse and more international. When I was thinking about this, I would probably have much simpler example, and again connected to the culture. And that's something what happens when the company is growing and you start to have more and more people. Like, you have still the same values, but then you still work like under the same principles, but then you start to see that people understand the same things in a different way, and you need to continuously watch out and monitor and open the discussions about those when you see that there can be some misalignment. So for us in Slido, and I think that's one of the continuous challenges, because as I said, one of our values is we care. But we care doesn't mean that we won't be open and that we won't share open, candid feedback because of the fear that we will hurt someone, right? And this is something what many people understand that way, that we care, meaning that we will be nice to everyone, but to the extreme that if something is wrong, we won't say. So this is something what we need to continuously work on and just support that ongoing feedback culture, and even introducing things around honest, like radical candor, all these things, just to support that in people, that by giving this kind of feedback, you are helping others and you show that you care. But it is much more difficult and challenging than just, sit back and just let it pass.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's as you mentioned, it's like a continuous process that you just have to do. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Lucie, what about you? What were some of maybe the personal biases you had to overcome when you founded Femme, or even when you moved to San Francisco, right? Because it's a whole different culture. What were some of the things that you found that you sort of need to, shape your perspective on?
I have a bit different kind of bias. More that people were having bias towards us because we have been focusing on women, it's something we came across that people think that if it's a organization or any initiative for women, that people think that there is some like gossiping happening and we are hating men, and which is some sort of like perception, which is actually not true at all. It's more like a supportive, environment that we were trying to create. So I just wanted to mention this kind of bias, that this is something we came across even in conversations with some companies when we were trying to help them create support groups for women, or even start a mentoring program for women, because that's what we do. But sometimes we were actually getting pushback because it was only for women. Just this mostly like this kind of bias that that people have.
It's very interesting, and I think that sort of goes like back to feminism, and how it's like still perceived in our society. And it's very interesting that you even get this like pushback from your clients, which is like a different perspective on the culture, right? So thank you so much for sharing that. Matej, what about you? What were some of the biases you had to personally overcome, as well as maybe in your company when you were trying to shape your culture?
So this is an interesting one, right? There's a lot of different things to unpack in this one. Initially, you have a lot of biases from clients, right? And if we're a global company, we have clients all the way from Japan, which has a very different culture, all through Hong Kong, all the way to San Francisco. When we have a client from San Francisco, he says, "Where's the diversity in your team?" Well, Bratislava is not well known for a lot of African Americans, right? Or a lot of different cultures and a lot of different diversities there. So it struggles on that side, on one side. The other side is if me as a gay man, when I'm selling and when I'm doing business, how open do you want to be with your clients? How open do you want to be with the client in the Middle East? When you're closing a deal, are you always going to be true to your values, or are you going to really want to, or do you want to close the deal, right? That's another one. And when we're talking about inclusivity, there's simple things, right? Like we also did all the mistakes as saying, "Hey guys," many years ago, but now even my co-founders, all heterosexual men, I finally taught them that it's "Hi folks" or "Hello everybody," and it's inclusive and it's very simple. And we don't say he or she, but we say they. And these kind of simple things, right? We co-founded the first LGBT bank in the United States, and that taught me a lot. I thought I'm very inclusive in my way of speaking and in my way of thinking as a pioneer of inclusivity in my company. But after hiring people, transgender people, or non-binary, or people that are gender fluid, and all of these fringes of inclusivity, you see that it is a very different approach to how much we need to learn. So it's definitely a scale from the old school Eastern Europeans to the San Francisco aspirational goal, and you're never gonna get there, right? So it's always trying to find a healthy combination. And then the last one, I think that every company has to have that, but we are definitely getting a lot of benefit from the diversity that we have there, and from a lot of the conversations and struggles that we have with that. So that's something that we do, and I believe that it gives us strength and gives us the power to innovate and to cross-pollinate through different places.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that, if you're maybe listening for the first time, or this is, I would say, a very new topic in general in our CE country. I haven't seen many events going this way, so I'm really happy that we are having this conversation. And I think, why this is very important is, even the little things, like when your colleagues ask you, "What did you do on your weekend?" And you say you went to a wedding, and someone asks you, "Who did you go with?" And if you have a male or a female partner and your colleague isn't ready for that answer, it might create some sort of a weird atmosphere for you, right? So I think it's like those little things that if you open up the conversation and honestly share in your team and are able to actually bring your whole self to work, then you can truly see how people are empowered and how they can really perform in an amazing way and just really shine. So I'm really happy we're talking about this. Maybe a little follow-up for you, Matej. You said that you started sort of thinking about your culture on this way from the beginning. Was it sort of, as you say, inclusive from the beginning in this way, or did you maybe transfer more into this, or like started exploring even more how to make your company inclusive in this way once you started working on your bank project? What was the timing? I think you don't have a microphone connected, so it is the 3 dots. Hang on, we had a little issue with the speakers, so just give us a few seconds and we'll see if Matej will connect back. All right, so you have to unmute and down with the 3 little dots. Microphone, and hopefully it will all work well for you. All right, let's see if we are able to make this work. Not yet. All right, I'll go with another question real quick before Matej gets back. I think we have a few Wi-Fi issues, so I'll actually ask Vráťa now if you could tell us a little more about some of the biases you had on the beginning, or maybe even during when you were building your company. If maybe somebody was a little surprised about the structure and about the transparency, or if everyone was on board, or if you had any personal biases you had to overcome.
Yeah. Well, no. First thing of all, I would like to commend Matej for his approach to all this diversity. I think it's great, and it's very inspiring to hear how you do it, Matej. It's a shocking for a lot of people to enter such a company with a flat structure, with people basically where we give people credit cards and say just take advice from some people and then buy what you need. This kind of like there's no manager to approve you, the thing that you do, just the guidance basically. And like right from the start, we kind of had to cope with the bias that it wouldn't work, that this will completely like the enterprise will crumble basically, that we will go bankrupt. And we are like, even with this self-managed principle, we are able to achieve like in crisis years around 20% profitability, and if it's not a crisis year, we can do way over 20% profitability. So it's actually a working business, and we are able to give people a lot of agency, a lot of freedom in this way, and that allows us to to allow a lot of diversity internally. In terms of, for example, we have a strong LGBT community, and because we are open about, we come to the office whole, the whole person, nobody is like feels shy about their sexual preferences or gender or sex. That's like, I'm not saying that everybody's sharing, right? But like, I don't think they are kind of. I don't think we have a culture that kind of shames people or something. That being said, I still think we have to work on a wording and about having a more inclusive language, because it doesn't come to me naturally as a straight heterosexual man to kind of use this word, and I use the correct words, and I have to kind of constantly remind myself to speak more openly. So I hope that my behavior is open, but the hardwired speech, for example, is still something that we are kind of struggling, especially in such a male-dominated space as the IT industry is.
Absolutely. I think the tech industry overall had had a lot of patterns for a really long time, and it's now being sort of disruptive. I would say disrupted by this different approach. As you mentioned, the vocabulary. I actually found a great bot for Slack that helps you sort of correct, or even like for general writing that helps you correct some words that might not be inclusive, and a lot of words you'd never think of. So I was really happy to actually discover this one and just try and use it for a little while to see like how, if even my language is inclusive. So this was really, really helpful. Amazing. Let's move on to the next question, which is again taken by Lucie.
So I have been working in the US for a couple startups. The last one I worked for, we had 20 people when I started, and the team grew to over 200 people in only a few years. And since I was at the beginning of creating the culture, defining the values, I have seen how the culture actually changed over time. And recently, some people who were at the beginning of building this culture started leaving. So I was wondering if you ever went through a similar situation when the culture changed, and how you and also the team, how they reacted to it. And we can go with Katja first.
Me again. Okay. I always start and then I have all the great ideas when the others are talking, but all right. I think that, well, when it comes to Slido, I think the culture is still the same. And I do have the same experience also from the other companies, because I worked before for fast-growing companies growing like crazy. And I think the culture stays the same, but it evolves with the company growing. So the context starts to be different. And that's probably when you see people who are just struggling with how the company operates right now, how it looks. It's not that company we joined 3 years ago with 50 people, with no rules, no structure, nothing. Like that is not a culture, right? That's on the top of that, and that's that context. And I think that for every single one of us, like there is a time and space when the setup is great for us, and then when it doesn't suit us, we can make a choice, right? So I think that's what happens. So as I said, I think with Slido, the culture is the same, but my experience, like I joined Slido July last year. So it was already like during pandemic, and immediately once I joined, I started to hear like that the company cultures changed because we can't be in the office together anymore, all of us, and being in remote, it's just deteriorating, and it's not like it was. And I was kind of surprised, because although I did my onboarding almost fully remotely, and I was afraid of that, like I could feel and sense the culture straight from day one. And I was so ecstatic about it. And I was just really struggling with how is Slido losing culture? Because I can feel it and I can see it every day with every person I'm talking to. So that's also, for me, that was a proof that it is about changing that context, that if you have the culture which is strongly built on people being together, and creating this kind of strong bonds, which is built on presently, like physically being together. Of course, when you hit the remote complete switch, which we all did, it just people need to adapt to that. And I was really able to see that adaptation mode, that even like now when we switch to the remote times, we actually, from our new hires, we have much better scores for their onboarding experience than we had before. Like really just, and we see the numbers, right? That those are the hard data. So we are able to give them that kind of sense of Slido culture. So that's one thing, and the other one is that sorry, and now I completely forgot what I wanted to say. It's 7 p.m. Sorry. Yeah, but that was probably the main thing, that the context changes, but it's like it stays the same. Yeah, and the second thing, like the second example was that we constantly try to think about what are we going to do for our people in these remote times, so that we support this kind of cross-team bonding, all these things. And actually, we realized that we don't need to do anything for our people. We just ask them, how do you want to help the teams? How do you want to help your folks? And actually, suddenly, we have colleagues who, in their free time, they do yoga classes for their peers, they do meditation courses, they do pub quizzes, they do music quizzes, they do cooking courses, all these things, and they do it because they want to, because they care, right? And that's, for me, the best example. So it's not about losing culture, it's just different.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Vráťa, can we go next with you?
Yeah. Well, for us, the COVID was pretty hard because, like, you know, we are kind of, from the work perspective, we are work ready, but from the culture perspective, you know, the best part of our culture was the great colleagues that you could kind of spend the time with and, you know, interact, have this like spontaneous discussions about stupid things in the kitchen, right? And then everything kind of like went dark on this front. So we kind of, you know, we are actually doing something very similar to Katerina. We are doing something called the Applifting community. We started like 2 weeks ago, where we are kind of highlighting all the like extra circle activities that the others are doing for the, you know, in as a part of the free time in Applifting. So, you know, there are a lot of different stuff, from exercise to like walks with the dogs and so on. So that's very nice. And I think, like, as we grow generally, we have this kind of like, I think the culture still stays the same, but the, you know, as we grew, I think that like there's some kind of, let's say, more hand holding for the newer folks, because the system got bigger. And it's hard to kind of just drop in and go in Applifting. And I think that the old folks kind of see it as a too much hand-holding. They, you know, because when they came to Applifting, it was all like, we will throw you in the water and you either swim or you drown, right? That was the initial approach of Applifting, because, you know, we were small, we couldn't have anything else. So there's basically this clash of those like old timers and the new timers, and a discussion of how much handholding there should be for the new guys to kind of like, and if the handholding doesn't mask, let's say, a company culture fit with the individuals, you know. But I think that the values still stay the same, and I would like to also kind of follow up on Katerina, that the biggest struggle we have right now is this sincere, candor feedback that we need to be giving to each other, and that maybe we are kind of like, you know, treating everyone in white gloves, and kind of not you know, not to be, you know, not to kind of be arrogant or like to harm anyone. We are not kind of we are not able to find the balance between the candor feedback and you know, and being polite and nice. And this is I think a biggest challenge that the Applifting has to solve in the next year.
Interesting. One tip for the forced kind of interactions that were usually before happening in the office is putting people into breakout rooms. If you for example use Zoom, before a team-wide meeting, you can randomly put them into these rooms, and it just like warms up the audience, and they will get to interact a bit before there's this like big group meeting. Cool. And Matej, is your microphone and working now?
I hope it works. Does it work?
Cool.
Fantastic. Great.
Yeah. Did you catch the question? I'm not sure if you
honestly
heard it.
Not. So if you can just repeat it, that would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay. So the question was if your team was ever going through a change in a culture, and how you or the team was reacting to it.
Oh, constantly, right? Like it's a like, you know, we started a company when we were 23, 22. Like, we didn't really know anything about life, and now we're in the 30s and we believe we know anything about life, but probably we don't, right? And there's so much more we need to learn. and it's an evolution. We thought some things are more important 10 years ago than we feel now. Everybody around us has kids right now, so we're more family friendly. We value more our partners, and at the time with the partners, we're less workaholic, and this changes a lot. And as we grow as an organization, we also bring in different cultures. We bring people from Southeast Asia, we bring in people from London, from the States, and they all have different ways of thinking and approaching and combining and managing a company culture, which is quintessentially Eastern European, but tries to be global, is a challenge. And some of the people are more international, but then you have pockets of non-inclusivity, as you would say, which is totally normal in Slovakia and Czech Republic. And then you have this overly inclusive PC people and try to put them in one room. And it's a lot of fun to watch that sometimes, right? And moderating that and finding that fine balance is definitely something to do there. And I believe that also with COVID, since we've already been such a remote organization with offices worldwide, of course, in the regional perspective, that changed the culture a lot. But since we've always been on Zoom calls and Skype calls before, that's still there. And we've been lucky that in Slovakia, we've been one of the pioneers of early testing. So ever since last May, we've been testing all of our staff every single week, and now twice a week. So we've kept our offices open since early June last year, all the way to now. So everybody can come to the office and sit and work, and that we had no transmission within the offices because we do such a thorough plan with testing. And it costs a ton of money, but it allowed us to open the offices and to have everybody together and to just increase and pump the creativity and the options to collaborate creatively. And just maybe a parting thought on that, when we were creating the new ventures, right? And it's always fun to talk about how from a mothership you transplant parts of the culture into a new venture, into a spin-off, which we can spend another hour on. But if you look at only that part, maybe to Open Daylight, the LGBT bank, solely on remote connections through Zoom, right? We started during the pandemic. We've never had the whole team in one room to this very, very day. And we've been able to raise a lot of money and to open a team and to launch a bank. So maybe a lesson learned from all of this is that even the people listening today on the call, if you want to start a startup today, you don't really necessarily need to be in the same room or necessarily in the same time zone or be from the same culture. You can just start, and if you're really passionate about the mission and what you're trying to build, you can do that.
Yeah, I can definitely confirm that. We started Femme while I was in the US, and our team, we have been actually working remotely the whole time from the start, and it's been 3 years, and our team is also diverse too, from different countries. So it's really great to have also different perspective on things.
Amazing. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to another question. And Matej actually mentioned that it will cost us a lot of money, but we want the team to be together and be creative. And my question is actually about investment, and that is if you think that investing in inclusive startup culture, whether there is money, resources, your time, your employees' time, has impacted your business in any way, and has been beneficial for your business. Vráťa, why don't you start with this one?
Yeah, well, our culture is at the core of what we do. So we naturally spend a lot of not only monetary resources, but also our mental resources of thinking about culture, how to improve it, how to make it better. And it's the culture is this the more you talk about culture, the more it stinks kind of. So it's very hard to kind of move this ephemeral thing to be more inclusive, more better from a well-being perspective. But we as leaders, we can only lead by example and make it kind of help people imagine the world after the change or after the culture is like globally more inclusive. So we spent a lot of let's say mental power and thinking how we could do it. And in like we are in a service business, and Vacuumlabs are there basically there as well, right? And like the IT scene in Czech Republic is so competitive that if you are in IT service business and you don't have a great culture, the people can basically work anywhere, right? Like there's a competition for talent. So that's also like it's a thing of our survival, because there will always be better paying enterprise people, right? Better paid, well-founded startups that can overpay us. So if we don't have a open, inclusive culture that the people value a lot, we wouldn't be able to attract the top talent that we need to stay relevant, stay competitive, and increase the well-being of our people.
Amazing. And I know you mentioned before when we talked together that you started doing something very interesting in Uplifting, and that is actually splitting the company into smaller groups so that you still have that very intimate small team feeling, that small team vibe. What would you say is sort of your next challenge? I know you mentioned already one, but would you say that it is to continue to have these multiple companies, or to focus on a new area that you would like to improve? And what is the next culture challenge for you in Uplifting?
Yeah, well, for us, it's all like we govern the company, or we set the mission through like a Maslow's pyramid of needs. So we kind of are above the survival phase. We know that Uplifting will be there if we don't screw up for a long time. Now it's like we know that we can get profitability, and now it's all about well-being. So how can we bring more money to our people? How can we bring better working conditions? How can we bring more inclusive culture? So we are at this stage right now, and we are trying to figure this out so that we can kind of hire the best talent and make it global, and be able to charge to different countries, to different industries that we are interested in. So that I would say that it's making that the biggest challenge for us, even from the culture perspective, is to do the step from a profitable business to a business with a great well-being of our customers and our people, and that's what we are looking at right now.
Absolutely, and I love your approach to inclusion, even on the decision making. And you recently included your employees on the revenues of the company as well, right?
Yeah. Right from the start, we are splitting 10% of profits to the employees, and they are deciding by themselves how to distribute it in the company. So like we as a leadership, we have no say in it. So that's this notion of co-ownership and kind of self-governance was always a part of the culture, Uplifting.
And Vráťa, this is interesting. If I just may just step in this and ask you a question, right? We're in a very similar they can vote, or they can decide what to do with the profits. I love that idea. I love that approach. It's interesting that you're saying that you're going into the wellness or the well-being actually of your employees. I believe, and this may be a bit controversial, that we're actually not doing that, and mindfully we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're one of our values is that greatness is worth sacrifice, and what we believe is that we want to do and we want to have impact on the world. It's not about rainbows and unicorns all the time, but it's about where can we make the biggest impact and how can we get there, but still adhering to our values, but still making a dent into the universe. And
Matej, I completely agree. And then the way how we see it, it's like profitability, well-being, impact. If you don't have happy people, the people won't bring the value that can be brought. Of course, it will always work, and we still think it's also like the matter of scale, right? Like the well-being can be anywhere from you are ramen noodle profitable to, let's say, you can enjoy a private yacht and everything, right? For me, it's basically offering a competitive level salaries with the enterprises, with the very well founded startups. That's something that for example we are now at the stage of figuring out, and then we would like to have impact in the world. As you kudos for the LGBT bank. That's awesome. And we are simply not there yet.
And Vratislav, you're in a very exciting point of in a company building, right? Like you are now at a point where you are gonna not know the name of everybody. You're gonna grow, and you're gonna need to really believe in the value of your people and their judgment and how they're gonna grow the business. So everything until now that you've instilled in the culture and the processes and the values is what's gonna guide you for years to come. So well done there. I think you're doing an exciting approach on that, and going from to 100 to 200 to 400, it's a roller coaster, right? It's going to be more boring. You're going to add in more processes. It's going to be less family. It's going to be more where this is not the same thing as before, as you mentioned, right? And it's only natural, and it's great that you're counterfighting that with some of the let's create a smaller bubble and all of these kind of innovations that you're putting in. It's exciting to listen to that.
Yeah, well, it's one big social experiment for us. So let's talk in 2 to 3 years whether we are still around and whether the bubbles that didn't burst. So we'll see.
Let's wait when you will hear. Oh, it's like a corporation already for the first time.
No, I already heard that. So no worries there. Yeah.
We're there.
I would like to follow up quickly on what you both said actually about investing into your employees. Can you give us some examples also for people who are listening to us? How do you do that?
Sure. Maybe I can jump in first. Like one of the things very early on that we did is we said that we are going to pay for 15 days of education per year for every employee, right? So and then because we're in a very competitive space where knowledge is value, and our industry changes faster than we go to sleep and we wake up, and there's always a new framework and always a new technology, always a new fad. So we give this space for them to go on to learn. That's number one. And number two is a thing that worked really, really, really well for us is that we don't hire based on a CV. We've never done that. We don't, we're not looking, oh, you have this technology, check done. We say, are you a smart cookie? Do you understand algorithms, and do you have a mind that is flexible, that is like a sponge that can bring in and get those new ideas in? If yes, we are easily able to invest 6 months in what we call a mid-career change, right? You're 30 years old, you've been in a Java environment for the last 10 years, God forbid, and now you want to get into the cool, sexy things. And, right? And we say, don't come back to us once you know it, but, you are a smart person, but you have a mortgage and you have 2 kids or whatever it is. So come and work for us. We're going to pay you a salary because that's what you deserve. And you're going to learn the new technology while getting paid. And I believe that is the best investment that is a game changer for a lot of the people, because now they can switch to something that actually makes sense for them without having, losing the security of employment and security of a payroll. Yeah.
Wow, that sounds really like a dream company to work for. Vráťa, what about you? And Katka, I would like to know your point of view on this too. How do you invest into your employees?
Yeah, we do many different things. For example, people just have this education credit card that they can kind of just like download from Notion and just spend do some advice taking from their peers, whether they think this certification is good or this learning is good, and they just can go for it. And I think that we have to support it more for people, kind of encourage them to do that, because it's very hard to actually spend let's say the upper budget that we have there. So it's always a constant battle between their priorities, day-to-day work, and their education, right? The second thing is, with this whole co-ownership, we actually invest into the future leaders in terms that anybody can kind of come in within the Uplifting and stake some part of the business and say, I will lead this, I will become the champion of the people in this area, and I will create a new bubble. and we give them a third of the company. Basically, it's like this half a kingdom and a princess kind of a thing, where we give them a third of the company, and they simply have to within a year prove that they have the, first, they are masters in their craft, they understand what they are doing. Second, they know how to sell it, and third, that they are like they have this culture heritage of uplifting, so that kind of, if the bubbles work well with each other. And we are now launching our third bubble called Uplifting Enterprise this year, and I'm very much excited because this is how we invest into keeping the local scale small, and I think that's the future, at least for us.
Wow, amazing. And Katka, how do you invest into your employees?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we do have the company ownership. We do have the ESOP scheme as well for our people, and that varies on seniority and the level they have. So almost everyone can chime in when the time comes. And then I think it's not so much about investment, but it's something what then comes back. So in a way it is, and that's probably that we try to make everything as much simple as possible with really very limited rules, regulations, and this comes also to those things as I don't know, taking vacations or taking the leave when you need. Like, there is a lot of flexibility for people, but it's also connected with their responsibility. So they don't need to ask for vacations. Like, there is no strict guideline, there is no maximal limit of time off. Like, when people need to spend, I don't know, 40 days a year off for various reasons, they can. No one is just knocking on their shoulder like, you shouldn't, it's too much. But they need to make sure that their responsibilities, it is picked up by someone. Like, there is no gap in that there is no one waiting for them for 3 weeks until they come. And this really proved to be very beneficial, because people understand that they have a freedom, but they also have the responsibility, and it's something what they greatly appreciate.
Amazing. Thank you so much for answering that. I'll just quickly close this. I already asked Vráťa what's their current situation and their upcoming challenge. Katka, what about you? I know you are now kind of new in the company, and it sounds like everything is going really, really well. But I know you're about to go through an acquisition, which is another great change in a culture. So how are you getting ready for this challenge?
Whew. It's almost like 24/7, I would say, how I'm getting ready these days. And with 3 more months to come until close, it will be funny period. I'm actually dreaming about processing visas for random people. So that's that's how it influences me, because securing visas for our people all around the world, working visas, is a big part of that. But about the impact on culture, like, I think that what is great about Slido in connection with Cisco, and of course Cisco is a huge international company with, I think, more than 70,000 people. But the cultures are very much similar and very much alike. So of course there are many concerns from our people. Well, if you have 70,000 and 170, right, it is just vast difference. So of course there are concerns from our people that we will be lost there, that we will be kind of swallowed, and we will need to follow all those rigid rules and processes, and product development will get stuck and delayed, and we won't be able to create anything anymore, and that we will lose our culture. But that's the core. Like, we wouldn't go for the deal if there would be a risk of us losing culture. We will still be Slido, we will still have our culture. So it's about finding ways how we can cope and how we can work together. And I have to say, like, so far, anyone whom I met from Cisco, they are extremely nice people. You really see the click in those values and in the culture, and that's what I hope that our people will see more and more. So of course there are huge concerns, but also a lot of excitement. Like, of course, at the beginning there was it was a shock and a lot of concerns, but slowly we managed to overcome. And currently I see much more excitement and looking forward. But I'm not saying that everything is great and shiny, right? We need to work on that constantly, day by day.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Best of luck with that.
Thank you. I will try to stay sane.
Amazing. All right, and Matej, last question to you. You shared with me your Vacuumlabs manifesto, which was really amazing to read, and I love the beginning where you mentioned that in the manifesto that you choose to work. What are some of the challenges your culture is now about to overcome in terms of choosing to work? How can you how are you going to make this I would say notion still living in your company culture?
All right, with increasing size to complexity and the remoteness of it all is always a challenge. What I would say is actually one of the biggest things for us is that we're going through a bit of a transformation. We are, historically we've been just a software engineering company, but in the last 2 years we created 7 different spin-offs, and Vráťa would call them bubbles. We call them spin-offs, but essentially very similar things, right? We found champions internally or externally that are leading parts of the business with a considerable stake in that business. And after those 2 years, we see there's a lot of growth, right? Some of them have failed, some of them are doing really nicely, which is only natural. And now, how can we methodically and systematically do this in a way that still supports the mothership, but also creates these spin-offs that are their own entities with their own minds, but create this ecosystem of businesses that have synergies, and which is an awful word, but the best one that can describe this within the group. And to figure that out within the context of inclusive culture is going to be a challenge. But I believe that we have smart people and tolerant people within the business that have been with us internally for long enough to understand that we are well-intentioned, even though sometimes we made mistakes, and that we mean well, and that we learn how to improve, how to create this better. So for us, it's about trying to formalize a process that's being more organic into a space where we can then create a space which is more predictable for people.
Absolutely. Sounds you're on the right track, but definitely a lot of challenges coming up as well. Amazing. I love that during this talk, I could always see on the right side everyone sort of nodding when each of us spoke on the stage, which is truly amazing. And I'm really excited about the conversations we'll have in the networking tables. Sorry that we ran a little over, but I hope it was worth everyone's time. So right now, I would love to thank all of our speakers for joining us here today. It was really, really great to speak with you, to take advantage of your time that you granted us today, and to hear about the cultures, the challenges, and the bases you have overcome and will overcome in the future. So a huge thank you goes to our speakers and our audience. Thank you so much for listening. And yeah, I will see everyone in the networking lounge. We have different tables for each company. So if you want to ask our speakers any questions or want to follow up on the discussion, please meet us there. And that's it for me. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Clara.
Bye.